For decades, Carol Burnett has been America's sweetheart, a beacon of warmth and uproarious humour whose very smile could light up a television screen. She was the kindest lady in Hollywood, a title she wore with grace and authenticity. But beneath that beloved public persona lay a resilience forged in private fires, a strength built from navigating the difficult personalities and painful betrayals of the men who shared her professional and personal world. In a stunningly candid reflection later in life, she finally opened up about the individuals who left lasting scars. Men whose actions range from bitter professional crashes and heartbreaking personal betrayals to public humiliations and systemic exclusion. This is the story of the four men Carol Burnett could never truly forgive. The figures who tested her spirit and in doing so inadvertently revealed the formidable steel that lay beneath her legendary smile. The first and perhaps most professionally painful fracture was with Harvey Korman, her very own comedic other half. On the glittering stage of 1970s television, where the Carol Burnett Show reigned supreme, Carol and Harvey were an unparalleled duo, a symphony of perfectly timed slapstick and character-driven hilarity. They were the heart and soul of the program, a partnership so seamless it felt destined. Carol was the brilliant architect of the comedy, and Harvey was the master craftsman who brought her blueprints to life with impeccable flair. But behind the roaring applause and the shared Emmys, a quiet tension began to simmer, threatening to dismantle the very foundation of their legendary collaboration. The relentless pressure of weekly television and the shifting dynamics of fame began to erode their camaraderie. By 1974, at the peak of the show's success, the atmosphere backstage had grown palpably cold. Harvey Korman had become distant and irritable, his frustration often boiling over during rehearsals. The unspoken truth echoed by crew members was that he felt overshadowed, that Carol's monumental fame had eclipsed his own considerable talents. The breaking point arrived during a routine rehearsal in Studio 33, a minor technical error. A light casting his face in shadow became the catalyst for an explosive outburst. Harvey slammed his script to the floor, his voice echoing through the silent studio as he chastised the crew, and with a cutting remark, implicated Carol herself for not noticing the error. In that moment, the warm, collaborative spirit of the show shattered. Carol, known for her gentle leadership, rose from her seat and delivered a calm, firm ultimatum that left the entire crew in stunned silence. She had reached her limit. Korman, confronted with the consequences of his actions, stormed off the set. The incident, later known as the Studio 33 blow-up, became one of the most famous behind-the-scenes stories in television history. Though he returned days later with a heartfelt apology and the show went on, their relationship was irrevocably altered. The trust had been broken. They continued to create magic together until his departure in 1977. But the deep friendship had cooled into a professional cordiality. In later years, Carol would reflect on the profound sadness of the situation, acknowledging that while Harvey made her laugh more than anyone, he was also the source of her greatest professional headaches. While Harvey Korman represented a fractured professional partnership, the betrayal from her husband, Joe Hamilton, cut far deeper, striking at the core of her personal life. Joe was not just her spouse. He was her producer, her creative partner, the man who had stood by her side as they built the Carol Burnett Show into a television institution. They were CBS's golden couple, a team whose synergy seemed unbreakable. In the beginning, their marriage was a perfect creative fusion. She brought the boundless talent and relatable warmth. He provided the structural backbone and business acumen. But as the show's success skyrocketed, the balance of their partnership began to tilt. Joe gradually assumed more control, often making key decisions about guests and scripts without her input, creating a growing creative and personal distance. Whispers began to circulate through the studio lots, rumours of Joe's involvement with a young CBS editor. The gossip columns began to hint at a veteran producer's indiscretions, and though names were omitted, the industry knew. Carol, hoping it was merely rumour, was eventually confronted with the painful truth by well-meaning, or perhaps gossipy colleagues. The final, unforgivable blow, however, was not merely infidelity, but a profound betrayal of their professional trust. While reviewing legal documents, Carol's team discovered that Joe had quietly established his own production company, registering lucrative spin-off projects derived from her show under his name alone. One of these was Mama's Family, a series born from a classic Burnett sketch, yet he had maneuvered to claim ownership, effectively attempting to profit from her creative genius without granting her due credit or compensation. This was the ultimate violation. She confronted him, and his cold, detached response that it was simply business severed the last remaining thread between them. The subsequent divorce was long, public, and bitterly contested, centered on the complex division of the very empire they had built together. The court ultimately granted Carol control over the show's name, a symbolic victory, but the personal devastation was absolute. When Joe Hamilton passed away years later, Carol did not attend his funeral, sending only a simple, poignant floral arrangement with a note that spoke volumes about their fractured history and her own enduring strength. "I wish you peace, Joe. As for me, I'll keep going." Beyond the betrayals of trusted colleagues and partners lay the casual disrespect and arrogance of the Hollywood elite, embodied by two very different men, Marlon Brando and Cary Grant. The incident with Brando was one of bizarre intrusion. In the dead of a Los Angeles night, a phone call that shattered the silence of Carol's home. On the line was the legendary Marlon Brando himself, his voice a deep, unmistakable rumble. Initially charmed by his complimentary words about her show, the conversation quickly spiraled into uncomfortable territory. Brando's tone grew increasingly personal and suggestive, his monologue crossing the line from professional admiration to inappropriate advance. Carol, with her characteristic blend of politeness and firmness, ended the call, but the damage was done. The next day, the Hollywood rumor mill exploded with sensationalized accounts of the late-night conversation. Painting it as a romantic overture, Carol was furious and humiliated, feeling her professionalism and personal boundaries had been violated. She instituted a lifelong policy of never answering her phone after midnight and made a conscious effort to avoid Brando at all industry events, a silent but powerful rebuke of his behavior. The slight from Cary Grant, however, was public and cutting. At a glitzy industry gala, Carol approached the iconic actor to offer her congratulations on a Lifetime Achievement Award. In front of a table of Hollywood's most powerful figures, Grant responded to a compliment about her show with a smug, dismissive smirk. He mocked her physical, expressive comedic style, deriding it as overacting and claiming he didn't understand its appeal. The public put-down was designed to diminish her art, to position his classic, refined elegance above the relatable, human comedy. Carol, with incredible poise, offered a perfect, quiet rebuttal about the value of real, empathetic laughter before gracefully walking away. She never publicly engaged in a feud, but she internalized the lesson. She later declined a lucrative film role that would have paired them together, a silent testament to her principles. She proved that her success built on making everyday people feel seen and understood was a force more powerful than any dismissive comment from an out-of-touch icon. The final and most institutional dismissal came from Lorne Michaels, the powerful creator and producer of Saturday Night Live. For nearly 5 decades, one of the great mysteries of American television was why Carol Burnett, the undisputed queen of television comedy, was never once invited to host SNL. It was a glaring omission that fans and critics alike could not ignore. The reason, it seemed, was a fundamental clash of comedic philosophies. Carol's humor was rooted in character, heart, and relatable situations, while Michaels was curating a new, edgy, and satirical brand of comedy for a younger generation. Insiders suggested that Michaels saw Burnett as a symbol of old television, and that her style did not fit the spirit of his show. This was not a single, explosive incident, but a long, cold, passive-aggressive snub that stretched for 50 years. Her name was reportedly brought up in early planning meetings, only to be dismissed. Though she expressed interest through channels, the invitation never materialized. The message was clear. She was not considered cool enough, sharp enough, or modern enough for SNL. When asked about this decades-long oversight in her later years, Carol never displayed bitterness. Instead, she responded with a gentle but devastating wisdom, stating simply, "I guess they didn't need me, but I didn't need them either." In that one sentence, she reclaimed her power, affirming that her legacy, built on kindness and a profound connection with her audience, was a different kind of strength altogether, one that no gatekeeper could ever diminish.